Hey there, Caleb Wojcik of DIY Video Guy here, and in this video I'm going to look at the 85mm G-Master lens from Sony. It works really well with their mirrorless camera bodies, and I'm also going to compare it to the Canon 85mm L-Series lens. This lens from Sony is one of the first in their G-Master lines, which to me really is just competing with the L-Series line from Canon. And what's great about these is they're constructed a little bit better. A lot of them have this aperture ring, which is able to be clicked or declicked. So if it's clicked, it'll click between the different aperture settings. If you declick it, it's completely smooth. So if you're filming a video with this lens, you're going from a dark environment to a bright environment, you can have a fluid change without those clicks that you get of the aperture, or you can just set it to A, and then you'll control the aperture inside your camera. The other cool feature about this lens is it actually has a focus hold button right there by the G. And what this will do is if you have your camera set to automatic focus and it gets into focus on what you want it to be, then you can just push on the side of the lens while you have the camera in hand and the focus will stay right there. So you don't have to flip it into manual or anything like that. And it's just really quick to be able to lock focus when you know the camera's got it right in some sort of automatic mode, and then release it and let the camera keep doing its thing, either in continuous autofocus or some other eye tracking AF mode. One reason to use these new mirrorless camera bodies is because they're super lightweight, but this is a actually pretty heavy lens, and it looks kind of funny once you put this thing on one of these mirrorless camera bodies. You can see it's actually hard because it dips down below the normal height of the camera. So if you're working on a tripod, here I'll swing this so you can see a little better. It's kind of dipping below where the tripod plate is. So you have to mount the camera really far to the front of the tripod plate to get this actually to fit on here. Now a workaround for that is to get the vertical battery grip, raise the camera up a little bit, you'll have some more leeway. But when you're using a mirrorless camera like this and you have a big lens on it, it gets really front heavy. And so adding a vertical grip helps balance it back a little bit. But most of the time you're gonna be balancing it at the lens and not at the camera body because it just wants to fall forward. And this isn't quite as heavy as the Canon f1.2 L-Series 85mm, but it's still pretty heavy and still pretty front heavy as well. So whether you're shooting photo or video, you can stop this thing down to f1.4. The Canon goes to f1.2, but really when you're at that level, it's negligible, the difference. So getting down to 1.4 is super, super shallow of a depth of field. And if you're taking photos on a camera like the A7R II with eye autofocus, it will find someone's eye and blur out pretty much everything else. And it takes really, really good photos. In video mode, you're probably not gonna be that far down, especially if you're having a person on camera. You're gonna probably be somewhere around at least 2.8, 3.2, 3.5, or 4 in the aperture range. But if you're going to do some photo or you're going to do some video of things that are stationary, you want it to be really shallow and a lot of bokeh behind it, going down to 1.4 is really nice. Now, if you're on Sony mirrorless, there's also an 85mm Zeiss lens that's comparable in quality and build, but Sony's doing really well with these G-Master lenses. They have a 24-70, they came out with a 70-200, and they're just building out this G-Master series of high quality lenses so that when you have 42 megapixel sensors or you're shooting 4K video, you need to have a really good lens because the quality of the glass is going to impact the image even more when there's more data that you're capturing. So I chose to compare this G-Master to the L-Series 1.2 from Canon because they look the same. They have about the same amount of aperture range all the way down to 1.4 and 1.2, but they're also in the same price range. So if you have been shooting Canon for a while and you've built up a lot of gear, you probably have one of these. So comparing it to a G-Master is just a good comparison because it's a similar price. So if you sold this, you could probably get yourself one of these if you're making the switch to Sony. So let's take a look at some side-by-side shots on both the lenses. The Canon will be going through the photo diox or diox, depending on how you say it, adapter to go from EF to an E-Mount. So I would just use whatever is native to the camera body. If you want to have all the features, if you want to have really fast autofocus and you don't want to have to deal with adapters and things like that, just go with the native camera lens company, in my opinion. Now, Sigma is my one, outlier, because Sigma makes really good performing lenses for Canon and for Sony and other camera companies, but I prefer not to mix the main manufacturers, so going Canon on a Sony or Sony on a Canon or anything like that, because you want all the features. You're paying for really good eye autofocus and other things with a Sony, so you should have that native and working. And if I had to choose between these two, I would choose the G-Master because of this aperture ring and the focus hold, the ability to do a smooth aperture pull for video, or just have that control on the lens instead of on the back of the camera or one of the dials is just really, really helpful. And that focus hold is really nice when maybe you're shooting in continuous autofocus, but it found what you wanted to focus on and you don't want it to lose focus. Just push that button on the side, it'll hold it until you let go. It's a really great feature. I'm in the process of trying to switch to completely Sony. Might take me some time, and unless Canon comes out with something newer like a 5D Mark IV that's amazing, or some other kind of 4K things that have all the pro video features built into them at a lower price range, I'm going to be switching to Sony, and I think this is probably going to be one of the first lenses I would buy. So hope you enjoyed this little look at the G-Master 85mm lens from Sony. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in another video. Later. Special thanks to B&H for sending this over to us to review, and definitely check out the G-Master 85 series over at B&H, as well as some of their other G-Master lenses.